Rogan of Love So Modern. Welcome to week 2 of the Circuit and Maven Quilt Along. Last week we picked out our fabrics and I went with this art gallery fabrics bundle called Gloria. And this week we are focusing on cutting our fabrics. So I've been teaching sewing lessons and sewing with quilty friends for a few years now. And one thing I've always noticed is we all seem to cut very differently. Some ways that make me cringe and some ways that are just different. So I thought I would share with you the way that I cut my fabric. So here I have some fabric, and before I've cut it out, I've given it a good press. So this is a whole width of fabric folded on itself like it comes when it comes right off the bolt. I actually have this one rolled up onto a bolt because I use this color so much. So what I do is I've given it a good press. I then line my ruler up with the folded side of my fabric. And when I was ironing this fabric, I put a lot of pressing on this to give it a nice crisp edge. And what I'm doing right now is I'm just going to square up this bottom edge because the two layers of fabric are not lined up. So now when I'm going to make my first cut, I'm going to line up my ruler. I have it lined up on my folded edge and my flat bottom edge. And cut. So I now have a 4" by width of fabric strip. Another tip I can give you is a few years ago I decided to invest in these Quilter Select rulers. They have this yellow background and they just don't slide. When I changed to these rulers, my cutting quality really improved. So if you find you're having a hard time with shifting rulers, I would recommend giving one of these a try. All right, so my folded edge and my straight edge bottom are lined up. And you want to make sure that your rotary is hugging the edge of your ruler because you don't want to curve out and then cut into your future fabric. So a couple of things to discuss that I did in ways I've seen it done differently to others. So I do not cut using my cutting mat as a guide. And you might be wondering why, isn't that the point of it? But actually cutting mats are known for not being accurate. And I've checked this cutting mat before, but if I line my 1" marks up with my cutting mat, everything is matching so far until I start to get to my higher numbers. It starts to get a little off. So we can't rely on our cutting mats. We have to rely on our rulers for accurate measurements. Another thing I find that I do differently than some others is I keep my ruler on top of what I'm cutting. So multiple times I've seen someone, so they would, say they want a 2-inch by width of fabric strip, they line it up on the cutting mat, they put their ruler on what they don't want to cut, and they cut here. The problem I have with that is if I make a mistake, I'm going to cut into my piece that I was in the middle of cutting. So having my ruler on top, number one, gives me accurate measurements. And number two, I won't cut into this. I can easily go back and square up and trim a little edge off if I made a mistake cutting up, but if I've cut in, it's now a waste of fabric. So those are two things, if you don't already do them, I would consider giving a try. I guess another thing I do differently, I didn't realize that some people actually cut their fabric vertically, which doesn't work great for my method because I can't see the other end of the board very well to know that it's accurately lined up. But also, you're then cutting, like my arm in width length actually doesn't meet the whole way, so I would have to kind of stand up on my toes and reach all the way down. But if I have my fabric horizontal, I can see everything and I can easily reach everything. So I hope you found those cutting techniques helpful, and I hope you'll give some of them a try and let me know how it went for you. Was it easier, or was it the same the way you do it? Let me know. See you next week. The next technique I'm going to share with you is called the stack and whack. So I have all 3 width of fabric strips underneath my ruler, and I've lined up my folded edge and my top and bottom edges. And right now all I'm doing is trimming off my salvage. So when you're doing this method of cutting, it does help to increase how quickly your cutting goes. But it's important that you have a new blade on your rotary cutter and that you don't do too many layers. So I would never do more than 3, max 4 width of fabric layers at one time, because then you'll start to get unclean cutting. So I'm going to line this up with my freshly cut edge, so that was my salvage edge, and my top and bottom edges. So I like to work towards my fold to get the most out of my fabric. And if you're having to press down really hard, then that means you need a new blade. There we go, nice clean cut. Now I was able to get 6 pieces at once. So I hope you found those cutting techniques helpful, and I hope you'll give some of them a try and let me know how it went for you. Was it easier, or was it the same the way you do it? Let me know.